Hey folks, welcome to the channel, The Mouth That Speaks It All. Get ready for a mind-melting trip through time. You think you know history? Think those high school classes told you everything? Ha! Little do you know the past is way crazier than any movie script. Today, we're digging up historical facts so insane and useless that you'll want to rewrite the textbooks. But first, if you don't want to be stuck in the Stone Age, smash that like button, destroy the subscribe button, and annihilate that bell. Let's go, 'cause history waits for no one. In ancient Rome, gladiators did product endorsements. Imagine the Colosseum packed and a guy yelling, "This blood was brought to you by Jupiter olive oil." Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than to the building of the pyramids. Yeah, folks, she might not have had Tinder, but she was closer to it than you'd think. In the Middle Ages, it was common to put animals on trial for crimes. There was even a case of a pig being put on trial for killing a child. Defense attorney? A human, obviously. Speaking of the Middle Ages, did you know people didn't throw the contents of chamber pots out the window yelling, "Look out below"? That's a myth. They had sewage systems. No surprise, poop showers. In 1518, there was a dancing epidemic in France. People dancing non-stop for days. Not even Carnival can handle that much. Some even died from exhaustion. First rave in history? King Louis XIV of France only took 3 baths in his life, and he was called the Sun King. More like Stink King, right? You think tattoos are a modern thing? The oldest Egyptian mummies from 5,000 years ago already had tattoos. Bet they were tribal designs. During World War II, the United States had a plan to use bats with bombs against Japan. Secret project codenamed X-Ray. Batman, is that you? In 1932, Australia declared war on emus. Yes, those giant birds, and lost. Imagine losing a war to a bunch of birds that can barely fly. The famous Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't short. That's English propaganda. He was 5'6", which was average height back then. But the legend of the angry short guy stuck. Ever thought of using cocaine to cure a child's toothache? In the 19th century, it was normal. They sold cocaine syrup for babies with pain. Nothing like a high baby to brighten up the home, huh? In 1814, London was flooded with 1.5 million liters of beer when a tank exploded. It was the biggest unplanned party in history. 8 people died, drowned in beer. Roman Emperor Caligula wanted to make his horse a consul, like give a political position to a horse. And we complain about today's politicians. Ever heard of the War of the Bucket? It was a real war in medieval Italy, all because of a stolen bucket. It lasted 22 years and more than 2,000 people died. Over a bucket. In ancient Greece, throwing an apple at someone was a declaration of love. Imagine the scene. "Hey babe," throws apple. Super romantic, right? American President Andrew Jackson had a parrot that swore so much it was kicked out of its owner's funeral. Even in the afterlife, that bird was causing trouble. Licensed to sell bread in ancient Rome? Only if it was hereditary. That's right, the baker's profession passed from father to son. "Son, you're going to inherit our dough." In 1945, a group of Soviet soldiers got so drunk celebrating the end of the war that they invaded and liberated a city that was already allied. King George I of England didn't speak English at all. Zero. Zilch. The King of England. Those white wigs worn by the nobility in the 18th century, they turned gray because of flea powder used as perfume, fragrant and full of pests. Julius Caesar was kidnapped by pirates, and you know what he did? He thought the ransom was so low that he demanded they increase it. Later, he came back and crucified them all, cocky from day one. Albert Einstein was invited to be the president of Israel. He refused, saying he didn't have a head for human problems. And this guy understood relativity. The Aztecs used chocolate as currency. Imagine paying rent with a chocolate bar? This month's tough. I only have Hershey's. In ancient Rome, athletes competed naked. The Olympics were like one big carnival parade, just with more sports and less samba. Emperor Claudius wrote a book about how to play dice. The guy ruled Rome and was worried about how to win at the casino. In 1814, the Thames River froze so hard that they had a festival on top of it, with elephants walking on ice. Tell me that's not crazier than any party you've ever been to. Vikings used the skulls of their enemies as cups? Lie! That's a myth. They were quite civilized for people who went around pillaging. King Louis XIV of France had 413 beds in his palace. The guy changed beds more often than we change clothes. Once, Liechtenstein went to war with 80 soldiers and came back with 81. They made a friend along the way. Friendliest war in history. Egyptian mummies were so common that in the 19th century, they were used as train fuel. Imagine the smell of that trip. The US government once tried to train cats as spies. Project Acoustic Kitty. They spent millions and it failed miserably. Cats being cats, right? In the Middle Ages, if you were on trial for a crime, you could choose trial by combat. Basically, a fight to the death to prove your innocence. Justice by fist fight. The first submarine was invented in 1776 and was called Turtle. It was powered by a hand crank. Imagine turning a crank underwater to escape the enemy? The ancient Egyptians used pet crocodiles to scare off thieves. Better than an alarm, right? Beware of the crocodile. In ancient Rome, gladiators did toothpaste commercials. This killer smile is brought to you by President William Taft got stuck in the White House bathtub. It took 6 men to get him out. Biggest presidential embarrassment in history. Genghis Khan killed so many people that he reduced carbon in the atmosphere. The first eco-terrorist in history? In the Middle Ages, people believed that geese grew on trees, like fruit. Imagine picking a ripe goose. King Henry VIII had a groom of the stool, basically a guy to clean him after using the bathroom. Worst job ever. In 1325, 2 Italian monks stole the arm of St. Nicholas, yes, Santa Claus, from his tomb. They wanted the saint's blessings by robbing him. Roman Emperor Caligula declared war on the Ocean. He ordered soldiers to stab the waves. Guess he wasn't a beach person. In World War I, a soldier named Henry Tanday had the chance to kill Hitler but didn't shoot because he thought he looked harmless. Oops. There's a city in Russia that only had sunlight for 40 minutes. In 2013. Chernobyl? Nope, just Russian winter. King Charles VI of France thought he was made of glass and could break at any moment. He wore reinforced clothes to avoid cracking. Drama King. In ancient China, time was measured with incense. Different aromas marked different hours. Imagine, smell of lavender, lunchtime. Pope Leo X had an elephant named Hanno. When Hanno died, the Pope wrote a 40-verse poem for him. That pet that's more like a child than a pet, you know? In 1892, a man tried to sell the Eiffel Tower. Twice! And he managed to fool a bunch of people. The biggest scammer before the internet existed. King Frederick the Great of Prussia was so addicted to coffee that he made it with champagne instead of water. Because water is for peasants, right? We almost had flying bacon in World War II. The Allies wanted to use frozen pig carcasses as incendiary bombs. Project Pork Chop. The Spartans trained dogs to steal food from slaves, like they taught dogs to be racist, not their brightest moment. President Lyndon B. Johnson held meetings while in the bathroom, with the door open. Power is power, right? Pharaoh Pepi II had servants covered in honey to attract flies away from him. Basically, he used people as human fly traps. Gotta value your employees. In 1814, Amsterdam accepted Napoleon as their new ruler with a huge celebration. Except it was his brother, Louis. Nobody noticed the difference. The first drafts of the U.S. Declaration of Independence were written on hemp. Imagine if it caught fire. We were independent for 5 minutes. The world's first postage stamp had Queen Victoria's face on it, but she hated it. Thought she looked too old. Queen Mama wasn't ready for selfies. The 30 Years' War lasted 29 years and 11 months. So close, folks. The ancient Egyptians used crocodiles as weapons in battles. Like Pokemon, just deadlier and less cute. King Edward II of England died with a red-hot poker. Well, you know where. Worst way to kick the bucket. Tsar Peter the Great of Russia had a collection of teeth that he pulled himself, from other people. As a hobby, maniac dentists are nothing compared to him. There was a laughing epidemic in Tanganyika in 1962. It lasted months. Schools closed because students wouldn't stop laughing. Best epidemic ever. In ancient Rome, rich people used urine as mouthwash. They said it whitened teeth. I'll stick with my Colgate, thanks. King Louis XIV had an anal fistula surgery that became a trend in the French court. Everyone wanting to operate on their butts to be cool like the king. The Vatican banned the use of umbrellas in 1912. Why? Nobody knows. Maybe they thought it was challenging the divine will to get us wet. Emperor Claudius legalized farting in public in ancient Rome, said it was a health issue, the first defender of better out than in. In 1945, a group of German and American soldiers fought together against the SS to defend a castle. The only time in the war that enemies became allies for a day. If your brain isn't oozing out of your ears now, you clearly weren't paying attention. But don't worry, you can watch it again, and as many times as you want. Now, if you don't share this video, you're basically committing a crime against the historical education of humanity. Send it to your family group, to your crush, to your history teacher, to everyone, and more. Comment below which fact left you most WTF. The most creative comment wins. Well, wins nothing, but it'll be really cool to read. If you enjoyed this explosion of historical knowledge, you're going to flip out over what's coming next. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, dude, what are you waiting for? The next Ice Age? Click that button already. See you next time, and remember, the past is a strange country, but we're the craziest tour guides out there.